and welcome. Today it's going to be in English and we're going to play a little bit because it's going to be on intuition. And what we're going to talk about today is about how can we use intuition to become better communicators, to become more visible. And I have guests here. I have Penny Pearce. Penny Pearce is one of the world experts in using intuition. She's also been working with branding actually, and she's a bestseller writer. She did several books on intuition. And then I have Nanna Erlend. Nanna Erlend is a career counselor, she's a leader counselor, and she works with business development and is one of the very, very few people in Denmark working with intuition as a strategic tool. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, one of the first things I wanted to talk to you about is I work with communication and I do a lot of core telling, storytelling. It's about companies wanting to become visible for the customers. And I see one tendency right now is that they produce to all platforms and in all formats, and they produce. And the problem is they make it also glossy and really nice, but the problem is it doesn't work. The audience doesn't react. So what we work on is being real, finding the real story behind the company and using that really to make a focused storytelling. And in this I was thinking, is it intuition we use to create this, or what do you think?
Well, I was going to ask you the same question. You know, like how do you get to the core?
Yeah.
I think that we are all becoming very ultra sensitive now and empathic almost, and we are working with our feelings a lot more than we realize. That when we hear something that isn't quite right, it feels like a misalignment, or it's like a static or something. And so that the more you go toward the truth, the more comfortable people get, you know, with and the core story that you're doing. You know, I think you get down and down and down to the more simple, real answer, and then it feels very satisfying.
Yeah.
You know, and people aren't agitated anymore. But when they're trying to sell something that's peripheral, I think there's a tension involved.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that really goes to one of the main rules of good communication is do not lie. Tell it like it is, really, isn't it? And is the audience becoming more and more sensitive to lies?
Oh, I think so. You know, I think that there's something here about an increasing need for transparency. And I hear it in America, of course, on the news every day about politics. But I think we all want access to more information, more truth, and we can't stand lies. It just feels bad. So, you know, I think that we want to know how our companies are working. We want to get through to real people when we call and talk to them. We want things to be personal. You know, we want to know about the leaders. As though they are our friends, you know, we want to be connected. And we don't want the hierarchical, you know, the people at the top of a hierarchy often keep secrets. Right? So we want things to be more on a level that's, you know, equal to us. And that's happening. I don't know exactly why, but it's a movement.
It is a movement, yes. So leaders and companies who are able to actually stand out very authentic and very honest, even with the bad stories, would have a better visibility and a better audience.
Well, just one more point on that. I think that when companies do something that is maybe a little mistake or something they're ashamed of, and if they try to hide it, people get really mad at them. And if they apologize, they get a good reputation.
Then they're back in the game again. Nanna, how is that in Denmark? Do you see, you work with the business counseling. Is this need for authentic?
I think we really have this really strong urge for being authentic.
Yeah.
And I really see that a lot when I work with leaders and entrepreneurs, that if we stand out and, you know, show who we really are and use our talents and show our values and really stay into integrity, then people can see who we are. We are much more clear in our leadership. And if we also follow our intuition, it's usually is a very long-term plan.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't feel like that, but it's really what I see all the time.
How is that with using the intuition among your clients? Is it acceptable to talk about it like that, or?
When they see me, it's very acceptable, but it really takes a lot of courage to go back into the organizations and say that's what they do. Some do.
Do they?
Some really do, yeah.
Yeah.
But also a lot of them, they are not that open with it yet. They know that that's how it works. It's part of their strategic planning and also how they work with innovation. But it's not, they don't talk about it, all of them, not openly.
Mm.
There's still some fear.
Mm.
Yeah.
Both of you work with intuition really as a strategic tool. How does people know when they use their intuition?
I think it sits well. Do you know, sometimes if you use the left brain and you're trying to be so logical and figure it all out, it takes a lot of effort. It almost makes people kind of get, you know, glassy-eyed. I think it's boring, actually. When you work with your intuition, you get surprising answers, and it's a kind of exciting, and then it sits well. Do you know what I mean? You know, it just kind of settles in, and you go, oh, this is the right thing. You know, this feels right. Yeah, I don't know. That's just it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
You know?
I see it very much as intuition is very neutral when it speaks. It has no fear. Of course, you are excited,
Right.
but it's really clear. It's just this stomach feeling. I
And
know,
simple.
Very simple. This is the next step, and I know that this is what I do. And often when I see leaders work with intuition, they do all the calculation, but then the last decision is made on intuition.
Yeah.
When they do all the calculation, all the strategic planning in a more rational and logic way, the last decision is always made on intuition.
I had that experience as well. I was a leader for many years in the media business, and we called it stomach feeling. You know, this feeling of, at the end of the day, I mean, what you do is you use all your knowledge and you try to figure it out, and then at the end of the day you have to make a choice.
Yeah.
I think.
And also one of the leaders I work with, she tells that if, for example, she goes to her economy department, she'll say, well, just throw me a figure. And what do you think this will cost? And what will be the calculation? And then in the end, it's very close. When they do the calculation, it's much.
She does that.
It's really close to what the first hunch was.
And
so,
how has she talked about what she does?
She talks about very freely about how she uses intuition.
Yeah.
And encourage her employees to do the same.
And how does the employees react to this?
Well, I think it depends on the department she goes into.
Mm-hmm.
Some are more open than others. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think actually using intuition in business really takes that the leaders go first. They have to show that this is actually a tool we can use, and it's not something, you know, woohoo stuff, but it can actually be a strategic tool.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just useful for very small things, like how you go about your business during the day at your own desk. You know, my sister runs a company, and she says she has her to-do list, but some things, like she thinks I have to make this telephone call, but she doesn't want to do it, so she puts it aside. And then in another day, she gets information that it was important for her to talk to that person about.
Yeah.
So it wasn't efficient for her to make the call the day before. There's small things like that.
Yeah.
Just like it's a gut feel again. It's sort of a, you know, I feel like leaning toward it and doing it. I feel like not leaning toward it and doing it. And then that can be done for small things, but also larger decisions,
Yeah.
larger kinds of issues,
Yeah.
like trends, you know, sensing how something's going to go
Yeah.
and almost feeling.
Is this
Into
gonna
the
sell
flow.
or not? Or yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so I think there are a lot of applications for it, and probably we already do use it all the time, but we don't notice that we're using it,
No.
right? We're unconscious because it's so natural
Yeah.
that we don't even notice it.
Have we been using intuition always?
I think it's the most natural perception.
Ah. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, like what you were saying, that often when even a team has to come up with something, the first responses, the first, you know, impulse is the one that they want. And then they go into the rational part and try to prove that, you know, and they're going to do it anyway,
Yeah.
you know, because that's what they want.
All right. Let's turn back to one of the power of attention. There are two aspects of this as I see it, because companies, even small businesses or big businesses, craving for attention and the need to have the attention of the audience. And then of course there is the receiver's attention to this. How do you see that if you talk about intuition and getting somebody's attention?
Well, I think we were talking earlier about people are so distracted right now. We have split attention in the receivers, you know, like we're paying attention to so many incoming channels and streams and, you know, modes and media that it's very hard to discriminate among all this stimulation. So what you're saying about telling the core story, the real deep story, that's what gets attention, I think, because it's just like so simple.
Yeah.
And sort of has weight to it, that it kind of cuts through all that noise.
Yeah.
And so I think really, you know, honesty, authenticity, those things are
Exactly.
powerful right now.
Yeah.
You think that also?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I see that. Really, just do it. Not do something just because it's smart and we see someone else doing it, but really do it if it feels right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really stay authentic.
Yeah.
Is it really true to my business or our organization to handle things and to go out and brand ourselves this way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is about, if you really want to stand out, you have to be very visible with your own self. And even if the technique is teasing you, it's not that important. It's the story behind it, isn't it? Yeah.
And I think people really love story. They want to know, how did the CEO come to think of this idea? Do you know?
Yeah.
How did you, you know, have the courage to be authentic in the market where everybody's copying everybody else, you know?
Yeah.
And those people stand out because they're original.
Yeah.
You know?
And then there is also the need to innovate. When you work with companies and being visible, you have to always innovate and being new. Can you use intuition to innovate?
Yeah, I think so. You really have to be very curious about how to build an environment or situation where there's room for intuition.
Yeah.
The way I see it is that intuition really works when we have more time and space and in breaks. If we are too busy, if we have too many plans, it's not really easy. It's not the best circumstances to use our intuition.
Yeah.
So creating a room and space where intuition can blossom.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also not going at the problem solving or the innovation from a logical standpoint, because that's often coming out of the past. It's like taking something that worked before, trying to do more of it or do it better or do it differently, but you're still sort of working with something that used to work.
Yeah.
And you're in the present moment now. Situations can be entirely different. So you have to let go of the past. come totally into the present moment. And then in that space, like Nana was saying, you have to have a kind of an openness or spaciousness and let your left brain quiet down so that you can feel things, you can sense things. It's not logical. You're feeling into a possibility, and especially then letting things be silly or surprising or, like I said, illogical.
Yeah.
That's the way you're going to get access to the good ideas.
Okay, so when we want to invent something new, a strategic communication way or a new platform or a new format, what you say is create a room where we do not talk about the main goal and no logic. Is that true?
I think that's helpful.
Playful, a little bit?
Yeah.
You said something about left brain. Can you say a little bit more about right and left brain? How do we use it?
Well, I think the left brain is what we're so used to, and it's often who we think we are. It's analytical, it describes, it creates meaning, it has language, and it kind of compartmentalizes things by defining them. Mm-hmm. And then once they're defined, you get a meaning from it, but then often the left brain wants to preserve that, and make this is the way it works, and make a rule out of it. And then things don't want to change. It doesn't want change. But the right brain is totally fluid, and it's all about immersion into the unified field of physics. It's like everything is there. The imagination is wide open, and it's all at once in the present moment. So everything's available.
That's the right part of the brain.
Yeah, and that's pattern recognition, and that's intuition.
Is that what creative people work from?
I actually think so. Yeah. Also, the right brain is much more holistic. So you can really see what is our role as a company or an organization in the world. And it works, on so many levels. So you can really, it's easier to see what could be our next step. How can we contribute to the society and the world? Yeah. And actually some of the new really successful companies, they work like that. Yeah. Really, really pay attention to what are the role we play in society. Yeah. And how can we contribute? And it gives so much more purpose and meaning for them. Yeah. And when they follow their intuition, actually.
Yeah. When we work with communication, we say it's the why. Find the why.
Yeah. The why.
The why. Yeah. Your why.
And the other part of that is that we are evolving very fast right now. Things are accelerating, and so the why evolves. Yeah. So you may have started a company 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and it had a purpose, and you were doing that and successfully. And yes, and you connect with other companies or a larger collective. But also your purpose may have actually shifted a little. Maybe we don't really want to do just that anymore. Maybe what's fun for us now? So you have to go down into this core story and say, my motivation has changed.
So really the why can change over time.
Yeah.
Is that fun?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't look back, look at the here and now.
Right.
When you create.
And I would like to add, it's really where you put your focus and your attention. Yeah. Where is things flowing? Where what needs to happen? Where we need new solutions? All that kind of stuff. So you really have to be much more open and curious when we innovate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can't plan too far ahead anymore because things are changing so fast.
Yeah.
And I think we have sometimes I call this the round trip, that you're in the physical world, you're doing a task and you finish the task and you're on purpose, and then you go, oh, but wait, let me open up into my dream world and my imagination and what's the vision now? And then you let it revise. And then you come, and what could I do now as a task that comes from that new vision? Yeah. I'm going to do something in the physical and create that, then go back again. So you don't go up forward, pushing forward. No. You go up and down, and back and forth. Yeah. From the physical to the non-physical to the physical.
And that's the creative process, really, when you work with the logo, when you work with text, when you work with the painting.
Yes.
Yeah, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't, because if you do one task, the left brain often says, okay, let's do more of that. But maybe that's not necessary, or even it's wrong. Maybe if you go check with your imagination, say, oh, we want to go left, you know, and so you have to check constantly, I think.
So it's like going back up into the
Imagination,
imagination.
really. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, instantly that's how many of us work, isn't it, really, when we create stuff. So, okay, down to business. I'm a company, and I want to do something creative communication, and I want to use intuition. Do you have any ideas? Where do I start? Baby steps.
I would say really connect with your audience, connect with your customers, really connect with what are they like, what are their problems, what are their dreams, and really kind of use your empathy to feel them, and also feel into what needs to be said, what do they need to hear, how do they need to be met, what would really work for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, but I wanted to ask you too. I mean, what's when you do that and you go into the core story and you help them tell their story?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah.
Because that's interesting.
Yeah, we always start with exactly looking at the core customers, like visualizing them. We see them really, and how do they interact with the product or with the company. Then after that, we really talk about the product. And we don't just talk about the product, we talk about what's beneath the product. You know, what is really under this product.
You mean like the experience of the product?
Exactly.
Or what they
Or the
will experience when
feeling,
they
or
use
the-
it? Or-
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't just sell a thing, really. You sell something, a why, something underneath that I buy into as a customer. And then actually what we do work very much with is when what happens is that the people who attend, they get pretty emotional about it. That's really the funny part, because they are really, the people working in the companies feel for what they sell or what they work with. They really have some emotions around it. I had this one where there was a salesman saying, we are Lionhearts. Somehow we are Lionhearts in this company. And everybody was quiet, you know.
Oh,
so that was really a big, you know.
Yes. Yeah. That is a real core statement of truth.
It was.
Yeah.
And I see that the communication really works when you succeed in communicating these emotions or these feelings.
Yeah, and I think also as we talked about in the beginning, there's so much information out there.
Yeah.
And we can really sense when it's real, if it comes from this more deep place,
Yeah.
the products we are buying.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. We want the feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And more quality goes along with that. You know, people who've done a good job designing something that meets real needs, that's, you know, manufactured to last. It's not cheap. It's you know, has a consciousness in it.
Yeah.
And people want that. They want things now to be more conscious, you know, more truthful, more pure even, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want artificial ingredients and pesticides and bad ingredients in their face creams and whatever.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And if there is, at least they want to know it's there, because
Yeah.
otherwise it will grow bad or whatever. At least you want an explanation of why we have to add this additive or whatever.
Yeah.
That is really also a way of brand preserving. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all, I think, there's something coming to, it's like a kind of collective consciousness. People, maybe it's from the internet and Facebook and everything, but people are making friends with each other when they don't even know each other, and it's global, and there's a sense of familiarity that, you know, you want to know the CEO of the company and what they're doing in their life. You know, like, do I like this person who's the CEO of the company?
Yeah.
You know, and you want intimate connections with anything that you deal with now.
Yeah.
Which of course then that's authenticity again and transparency again.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like the impersonal is becoming personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Penny, do you have any good examples from big companies or that you have been working with, or that you see that really work very well with this intuitive?
Oh gosh. I think that, I had one man who was at one of the big investment companies. And he, in order to know what to do with his department, he managed a big department, and he had an office that was separated from all the rest of the people. He would come out and he'd walk around and just chat with everybody, stop at their desks and talk to them about their vacation or whatever. And sometimes they wouldn't even say anything about what they wanted in their job. But he would make these rounds, and then he'd go back to his office and he'd know somehow intuitively what needed to happen with people. Which seems, in a way it's a little illogical that he would get guidance about how to manage people from just talking about their kids or something.
Yeah.
But he did.
Yeah. You once said that many leaders are really intuitive. Do you think so too, Nana? You work with a lot of leaders.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as I said in the beginning, it's only some of them who talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're a leader and you're working with intuition, then you're definitely not alone. If you don't say it's intuition you work with, then maybe it is anyway. Or what do you think?
Yeah. We had a program for a couple of years I worked with where it was an apprenticeship program for hospital CEOs on intuition development. And it lasted a year. And they brought together leaders of hospitals from all over the United States. And they had I think 5 retreats. They could bring their families, but they would have a 4-day intensive with intuitives and artists and exercises to develop their intuition. They got into aromatherapy and talk about flower power kinds of things.
Yeah.
And the first gathering, they had readings from 3 different intuitive people.
Really?
That was their first day, each one of them. And they came out just how did these people know all these things about me? And they all said the same things. How did that happen?
Yeah.
That was what blew their minds. So then they started bonding with each other and they started opening up and sharing their intuitive experience about how they decided to do this or that, or how they made a change in their department. And after a year, they were so open. It was an amazing thing. They just wanted to keep going on and on.
Really? So they just accepted it to work with it.
And they integrated the changes into their hospitals so that they would be destination sites for other hospital leaders. They could come and see, here's how we're doing it,
So we are actually talking about leaders of hospitals in America who openly work with intuition.
Yeah.
As a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also interesting to talk about the benefits of using your intuition.
Yes.
Bring it on then.
It is,
That's a good topic.
as you said, and I see the same with the leaders that I work with. They are much more connected with all their employees. They are much more connected to what role does the company have in society, what is our purpose, and also their self-leadership, I would say.
Yeah.
They're much more connected to their own needs, which I think is important because they are role models for their employees. And at least in Denmark, we talk a lot about self-leadership, that everybody needs to lead themselves, and we want that because it gives more freedom, but it also gives a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
So using your intuition, really connecting to what do I need to do, what is right for me, how do I balance myself, intuition is a really good tool.
I also think that the more intuitive you are as a leader, the more compassionate you become as a leader. And then it's almost like, we don't know whether we can use the word spiritual at all, but you work by much more win-win-win philosophy, so what's good for you and profit, in your company also is good for your employees, it's good for your customers, and it's good for your neighborhood and your community and
society.
And it's all, how do we get everybody to win here? Not me be better than you. It's not,
Yeah.
there's no more of this hierarchy and the poor people, you know, it's more like let's all, you know, take care of each other. And I think leaders are becoming more compassionate.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I was also thinking that one thing about intuition is that it's so much faster than the
It's very fast.
Yeah, it's
Really,
very efficient.
It's so much more efficient.
I think one of the principles of working with intuition is that there's always a non-physical version of the physical reality.
Yeah,
And so I call that an inner blueprint, you know. So if you work in the inner blueprint and shift it, all the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the inner pattern of how you see it working, it's kind of like an inner geometry of how things work,
Yeah.
and you change it to the way you want it to feel, and then imagine it spreading out through your company, and you could feel it. Then often the behavior of the people actually changes to match the inner blueprint. So you can save a lot of time and effort by working first in the inner mind and the imagination to create something, and then allow it to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
You know, they say Nikola Tesla, you know, who was the great inventor, he would design machines in his head, and then he'd run them. And then he'd
In
see
his
if
head.
they broke down,
yeah.
and then he'd fix them in his mind, and then he'd build them.
Did you get that? Tesla's being driven around in a head,
Yeah,
and then when they break, it's being fixed, and that means when it goes into production,
it's perfect.
it's bulletproof. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So we actually have a lot of advantages on working with intuition. It's more efficient. It's really a possibility to even make it higher quality because you can sort of rewind it in the head first. And then there is something about compassion and an easier way really to make the company more visible.
And more fun.
Get the story out. And more fun. That's
Because
one of the-
then the employees are happy. They're like, oh, yeah, this is like, you know, play. You know, it's
Yeah.
not like, so serious.
Yeah. Is
But I
that-
would say one more thing is also when you use your intuition, you really need to be present. And
Yes.
we really want leaders to stand out and be present
Mm-hmm.
in the present moment, not being out there. So it has a lot of benefits.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the benefits. And I have one thing that is really important to say. It's not a flower power, or you call it a woo-hoo thing. Intuition is not flower power or spiritual or divine, maybe, but not exactly. It is actually a real tool here we're talking about, isn't it? It is real and
Yeah.
grounded.
Yeah, to me, it's more real than the physical world.
Yes.
Yes. Because the physical world is the after effect of the inner world.
Of what was made from the intuition. Yes. Okay, so let's bring on the last chapter. I think that would be the meeting, the small beginnings internal in the companies, saying, I don't know about how to work with intuition, but now I want to do something with my employees. Where do I start as a leader?
I would say it's a lot about asking the right questions, opening people up, asking questions where you are curious.
How do you do that?
You can ask people to, what is your first hunch? If we
Yeah.
had to look at this in a different way, what would we see? If we look at this in 1 year, what would happen? What would happen if we went down this path or this other path? Play with it, open up, be more creative.
Yeah, it's like creative questions.
Yeah.
Right? You know, like we did one exercise where, you know, you write a headline about the company that's 5 years in the future, so it's in the newspaper. It's accomplished, this company has done this and it's accomplished all these things. And then you backtrack from there. How
Yeah.
did we get to that?
Yeah,
You know?
that's a good start.
Yeah, it's all kinds of creative thinking,
Yeah,
of working with imagination,
yeah,
you know, to play.
yeah.
You don't have to be right, you know?
So, good questions for the employees, hunches, and playing with it, saying, where are we in 5 years? See it, picture it as a headline in the newspaper, which is definitely something communication people work with.
I think even the suggestion box, you know, the old idea that, hey, just make anonymous suggestions about how we could improve this company. People are very intuitive about and smart about what needs to happen. You know, they all like to contribute to problem solving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So use them.
Tools. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any other ideas or?
Yeah, and also be more open to connect with the customers, because sometimes they'll also bring good ideas in.
Right.
Yeah.
Like asking them or?
Yeah, you can do that in many ways. Yeah.
There are a lot of surveys out now that you
Yeah.
get after you did something. They send you a survey online,
yeah.
but they're stupid. You know,
They're really stupid.
They're
Yeah,
like, well, you know, like,
did you like the product?
Yeah.
Did you like the service? Did you like the?
right,
Again, you can ask other kinds of questions that are
Yeah.
much more open.
those leading questions.
What
Yeah.
would you really like to see in our products? What would be an amazing improvement? You can ask all different kind of questions that are
That is
much
really
more open.
one of the good advices of today. Ask
Yeah.
the questions from the customers that they do not expect to get.
Yeah.
Don't ask them to
Right.
rate the service because that is really not intuitive. But
Yeah.
what would you dream of from our product? What would be a big improvement? Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also thinking that this small exercises every day, like this is a good decision, or is it a bad decision? You know, these
Yeah.
small exercises
Yeah.
every day as a leader. Am I using my intuition now, or is it really something else I'm using? Left or
Yes.
right? Just even getting the attention to it.
Right.
That now I am using the intuition.
Yeah, I talk a lot about noticing what you notice.
Yeah.
Right, you know, so it's kind of a mindfulness practice, but if you go about the day and you kind of keep track of what you're thinking about in your underconsciousness, in, you know, just below the surface, what kind of conversations might be going on in your head, or what little symbol did you notice in the day, or, you know, and those things mean something if you pay attention. You
Yeah.
go in and say, why did I notice that?
Yeah.
Or that you overheard a piece of conversation, you're walking by somebody's desk and they're complaining about something. You know, collect that, you know, work with it. You know, that a lot of times it's just stuff comes to you all day long and we gloss over it.
So everyday intuition.
Yeah.
Could we call it that?
Notice what you notice.
Notice what you notice. Yes. So, thank you very much for coming here and sharing all your knowledge about intuition. I hope you feel inspired and feel like trying to experiment with a more intuitive way of communicating. And thank you.